Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's time once again. Grab your gear and take to the road as we try and catch up with the entrepreneurs driving the e-bike revolution and the love stories of those riding along. And today, what started as a love story turned into an entrepreneurial story for a couple of people here today. So let's see if we can dive into this. We have with us, is it Mark Librie? I forgot to ask you how to pronounce it. Is it Mark Librie? Do I get it close?
Librie.
Librie. I wasn't even close. All right. Mark Librie, you're the owner of Pedego, and I hope I don't fumble this. Is it Kailua?
You got it.
All right. Well, Mark Mark decided to move in a different direction a few years ago. Give us the story of how you stumbled into a bike. Sounds like your wife bought one, and that turned into, hey, maybe this could be a business.
So I had some friends who he did his research. He really did. Bob is the kind of guy that he doesn't buy anything without knowing exactly what he's doing. And so he came upon Pedego bikes, and we were hanging out, and he said, hey, I'm going to order these electric bikes, and do you want to? I said, absolutely not. We have like 10 bikes in the yard. We can ride our bikes.
Yeah.
My wife was like, well, I kind of want one. And I was like, no, you don't need a bike. Bob ordered 5 bikes for himself, his fiance, and 3 other friends. And when they came, my wife, Robin, fell in love. And she said, I really want one. I said, you don't need one. She said, but I really want one. I said, you don't need one. And so that went on for a couple of weeks, probably. And then I came home with a new race stand-up paddleboard, because at the time I was racing. And she came home and she looked at it and she said, that's beautiful. And I said, yeah, it is. And she said, what'd you pay for it? And I said, well, the Nashes really want me paddling for them. So it's a $3,300 board. I got it for $1,900. She goes, great deal. She looked at me and said, I'm getting the bike.
I can see where this is going.
To which I said, why did you even ask me? You don't ask me to buy anything. Is that right, Chandelle?
Yes.
She pretty much buys what she wants. So we ordered a bike, and within a couple of months, the battery died. And so I called up at the time. I called up Don. He was like, well, the only guy in the office. And I said, hey, the battery died. And without even like, oh, we need to check this, he said, we'll put a new one in the mail to you tomorrow.
Wow. Okay.
And I went, wow, company that stands behind their product, pretty reputable.
Yeah.
So it was the old batteries that had the little handle on them so you could pull the battery out.
Yeah, because this goes back a ways. I mean, this wasn't like recently. This
is like 2011, 12, somewhere in there.
Early days, right.
So we have a hill on the way out of where we live. I would ride my cruiser as fast as I could to catch her. And then just before the hill, I would flip the little handle up and grab onto it and make her tow me uphill.
Okay.
And just a light bulb went off one day, and I thought, wow, I could probably do this as a business. Traffic in Kailua is getting so bad, everybody's going to want one. I contacted, again, Don, and we started Pedego Kailua it was actually the Labor Day weekend of 2013.
Wow.
We opened our doors.
Way early. We're almost a decade ago here. So what had you been doing prior to this other than competitive paddleboarding or whatever you said?
I'm still, to this day, a general contractor that builds custom homes around Kailua, pretty much.
Okay.
That's where I kind of make all my money. So I'm still doing that. And Pedego is, sort of a side hustle.
Right.
Chandelle was my bookkeeper at the time, and she had come from the mainland, and I hired her for no money.
That's a good deal. Where do you get these employees you can hire for no money?
That's a good question. Yeah. She was unbelievable, so immediately I had to give her more money.
Right.
But I didn't have the hours for her to make, full time. She was working 20 for me.
Yeah.
And so an electrician buddy of mine was like, oh, my bookkeeper left. I need somebody. I said, hey, why don't you hire Chandelle part-time? We'll share her. So we were sharing her. And then when the opportunity came up, I said, hey, do you want to manage the store? You can run it because I got too much to do with construction. And she said, yeah, I'd love to do that. She has a background in inventory.
So let's hand it over to Chandelle Garcia. You had come from the mainland where we're located. That's Hawaiian description for anything outside of the islands, I guess, here. Where in the mainland, like we're all just one big land, where did you land from?
I was born and raised in Southern California in the Riverside area.
Okay. And why come to Hawaii? Just search of paradise and search of a job? What brings you to all the way across the ocean to Hawaii?
So my mother's side of the family is originally from the island of Kauai. Okay. So I had family here. I spent my summers here. And so I just wanted to kind of go back to what I considered home, even though I had never lived in the islands. So just kind of on a whim, I moved, and then I was looking for work, and one of those family members pointed me into Mark's direction for the construction position. And then it, as he said, just kind of all fell into place after that.
Okay, so I get that you're looking for opportunity. That's why you came. But that's a pretty big leap from being the bookkeeper to being the manager, chief cook and bottle washer, sales, fix the bikes, everything. That's a big leap, it seems like.
It is. I had to convince him a little bit. His accountant was not exactly on my side. She didn't know my background and what I had done for 10 years on the mainland. She only knew me as his construction bookkeeper.
Right.
So I had to redig out my resume, show him, remember this and remember that. And so he trusted me enough to let me kind of go and see how it went.
See how far you could ride this thing here. What was the reaction in those days? Because most of the people who've been on the show, particularly of late, are pretty new to this whole thing. They retired from some career looking for something to do, or like in Mark's case, they bought a bike and suddenly started saying, hey, this could be more than just a passion. This could be a whole profitable enterprise here. What was it like back in 2013? Were people staring at these things going, what the heck do I do with this? Or did they get it right away and just, I want one? Mark's shaking no. How did they react? I mean, you're at the store and you're trying to sell this thing and sell people on the concept of it. What was that like in those days?
It was very difficult. People did not have any kind of understanding as to what an electric bike was.
Right.
So we had the difficulty of, one, getting them in the store, and then two, once they were in there, trying to explain everything. And our biggest sales pitch, as Mark tried to drill into everyone's head, was just to get them on the seat, get them out there to try it.
There you go.
If we could get them that far, it usually always ended in a sale. But it was a lot of educational information we had to provide to get to that point to the customers.
All right. That was almost a decade ago, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Has it changed? Is it still an uphill battle, or are you on the downside of the hill and people are racing to catch up to you here? Because I would think e-bikes would be a natural in Hawaii. I can't say Hawaii like all the mainlanders do. I'll try and get that right. I would think it'd be a natural one because it's a tourist destination. So people are going to want to get around, maybe don't want to rent a car. They probably don't want to rent a car. And they want to ride around and see things. And it's hilly. You know, there's a lot of mountains, hills and stuff. I've only been to Hawaii once and it didn't seem like it was flat country.
So Kailua is actually relatively flat. We have hills, we have mountains, but town itself is a beach town. You know, it's an alluvial plain, basically.
Right.
And so, you know, the bikes, people ride bikes here all the time. The uphill battle was getting people educated that they would actually get exercise if they rode an electric bike.
I see.
So many of my friends, well, I don't want an electric bike. I won't get any exercise. And my answer every time is, where's your bike? It's hanging in the garage. You ride it? No. So, well, at least you'll ride these things. But really, we traditionally didn't sell hardly any bikes. Mm-hmm. What we did end up becoming was a Japanese bicycle rental store.
Okay.
And we're really lucky in when people from the mainland come to Hawaii, they rent a car, they drive around.
Right.
Japanese come to Hawaii, they get on a bus, on a tour bus, and they're, brought to different towns. Well, the tour buses empty out right in front of our store. So it started out really slow. We had to convince the big tour companies that, safety was their number one thing. You can't kill our Japanese people. Then that we would take care of them. Every one of our employees now, early it was hard to get them, but every one of our employees now is fluent in Japanese.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Including Chandelle Garcia from Riverside here?
No, I'm the exception.
Okay.
Her and I. The two people that run the place, but all our sales folks, I have two Japanese women that are both married to retired Marines.
Okay.
And then we have a kid. He's not a kid. He's 35 or something now.
That's a kid.
But,
look at the gray hair on my face. That's a kid. Right.
But Kaipo is Mormon, and he did his 2-year mission in Japan and learned to speak fluent Japanese.
How about that?
And the Japanese women love this local guy that speaks fluent Japanese.
I'll bet.
It's pretty cute.
So the tourists grabbed it, and did other tourists take? I would think, again, there wasn't anything. I went to Hawaii many years ago, and we stayed at some resort. And yes, you rent a car, and you kind of know where to go, and it seems like kind of a hassle, and you really kind of just want to go. I would think a bike would take you all sorts of places, not just around town, but up into the hills and down the beaches and all that kind of stuff. I think that would be a perfect place. If I was dreaming of opening a bike shop, I would think it would be at a beach location. That's what I would think.
Yeah. And we were really doing well. We were really doing well. Really, really doing well. And all of a sudden, what happened in 2020?
I think there was a bug that put a little wrench in everybody's, particularly Hawaii. I was going to ask it. I don't know where we want to go, but Hawaii is tourism dependent. And when
it became paradise, though. It literally became paradise. So,
because nobody's coming. Yeah, right. Yeah.
We're in a residential zone here that gets so many tourists. It's unbelievable. And when there were none, we had our beaches back. We had our roads back. We had our mountains back.
Yeah,
the fish came back.
Yeah.
It was pretty amazing. What didn't come back, though, was cash.
Yeah, right. So how did you handle, if you don't mind going into that? It's been a couple-year journey. I guess Hawaii's back open now. It's been open and closed kind of like most places. We're doing this in September 22 for those listening forward. So I'm assuming at this point that it's fully open and back in business.
Yes.
But what did you do during that couple-year period?
I cannot praise our landlords enough.
Good.
Without them, we'd be closed.
Wow.
There was a big Hawaiian company bought our town basically for $500 million.
Wow.
And all our rents went through the roof at that point. That was in 17, I think. And when COVID hit, they just totally stepped up to the plate. And they gave us, first they deferred our rent, which we had to pay them eventually.
Right.
Then they canceled our rent for months. Then they went with purely a percentage rent.
Wow. Very
and
creative.
Then they started adding money as things opened up. The bummer is the Japanese have not really returned. Their regulations are still so strict with the people returning to Japan that a lot of people don't want to go on, leave the country.
Right. Because you got to get back in, and the requirements to get back in, and the testing, and I'm assuming.
Right.
Right.
But the good thing is when that happened, everybody was home and they started to want electric bikes. So we started to be able, we started selling more and more bikes. And now we're basically a regular Pedego dealer that we sell bikes, and we're getting more rentals, I think, weekly now.
So you went from being primarily a rental company, and you said to Japanese tourists mostly in the beginning, where they would get dumped off and then they would want to keep going. You went from a rental company primarily to now primarily a bike store, like any other bike store across the country here.
Yes.
And rentals are still part of it, but it's not the primary driver of this thing.
Not at the moment, but when the Japanese do return, and they will, we'll go back to being, a big rental place.
Remind me which island you're on. Kailua is the city on which island?
Oahu. So we're a small town on the other side of the mountain from Honolulu and Waikiki.
I got it. Okay. Sorry, I should have pulled out my my world atlas here before I did
That's
this
okay.
here.
We're probably the nicest town on Oahu, for sure.
Okay.
It is. And the friendliest. Like, you come here and everybody will look you in the eye, wave, say hello. It really is a wonderful place.
That small town feeling that Hawaii was once known for. I didn't feel it so much when I went to even to Maui. It just felt like one giant resort to me. I felt like something had been lost a little bit along the way, but not there. All right. So I guess this is really interesting because we've never had anybody on talking about the importance of rental versus the importance of buying. Most of these are bike shops. They're selling bikes. And the rental is an additional income or an additional way to get people to try the bike. Rent it, go out in it, and then see what you think.
And, Paul, as far as being lucrative, you buy a bike, you rent it out. It paid for itself within a month or two, usually. Right. And then it was just, that bike was producing income.
Right.
So it was a really good gig. Now the Japanese, the big tour company really hasn't brought the big buses in since 2020. And the smaller ones are smaller vans are starting to show up with 6-7 people in them. And, we're just hoping that it just increases through time.
So you can find both parts of the business. All right. So Chandelle, you get into this, you get going, and all of a sudden the rug gets pulled out from under you. You're thinking, I better go back to Riverside. I better go back to bookkeeping here.
Well, going back to Riverside never crossed my mind. But we really had to shift our focus and everything, we had been doing, our marketing dollars that went to advertising in tourist magazines. We now had to look at more local marketing to try to get the local people in to purchase the bikes. So it was just a real shift in focus, another learning curve, but I think now 2 years later, I can say we figured it out and it worked okay.
A shift in gears, no pun intended. Well, yeah, actually, a shift in gears. All right, so talk about the state of e-bikes in Hawaii and all the islands. Is this still an emerging industry or is this an established industry? Are there lots of bike dealers? Because there's lots of bike companies. Are there lots of people selling bikes or renting bikes, or are you still pioneering this? Chandelle. You're in the front lines.
We're the only Pedego dealer on the island of Oahu. There are other e-bike stores, 3, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, that sell other brands. But as far as Pedego goes, we're the only one. And the state of Hawaii is a little bit slow with coming to terms with the laws and getting that gray area fixed out as to where e-bikes fall. But I think it's coming along. It's 100% better than it was 10 years ago. Because,
again, I would think you when I went to Maui, don't you go, you go to see something, some mountain rise, some sunset rise over some mountain, or you go up the North Shore to Hana, the road to Hana, and all these famous treks and trails and stuff you do. And some of those, now again, this isn't your island, but some of these are kind of off the beaten path. They're gravel roads, or they're not necessarily places you're going to take a car. I don't know if it's like that on the island that you're at, but many of these islands have more kind of remote back trails and stuff here. I would think this would be a wonderful way to see the island. I would think it'd be where you're outdoors, you can stop and go at a slower pace, and whether you're living there or visiting there, I guess my impression would be this would be e-bike heaven.
So let me answer that one real quick, Paul. Hawaii is, like she said, it's slow in anything, and especially in infrastructure. And our bike lanes are substandard. So Maui, it's dangerous to ride an electric bike. We had a we had a Pedego dealer over there. Right. And I went over, when they opened with Tom. And anywhere you rode, you felt like you were going to get run over at any given moment. Bike lanes were non-existent at the time.
Right.
Kauai, opened up a really good bike lane on the Kapa'a side of the island. I haven't been there, but I've heard great things about it. We had to lobby the legislature for 5 years, I think, and they finally made e-bikes legal. Now, the good thing is they had never made them illegal like Manhattan had.
Yeah, right.
So it was a gray area. So the cops would stop and I'd say, blah, 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 blah. And they go, oh, okay. Or if we had any kind of problems, I would always say, well, federal law says this. We are an electric bike. Federal law says we are a bicycle, and we don't have any laws. So that's what sets precedent.
Yeah.
And cops were always really good about it. And you couldn't register electric bikes at the time. So our state rep is totally into renewable energy. And so Chris started working on it, and he got that law passed, him and one of the Maui legislators. And now Chris has been working really hard on getting bike lane improvement throughout, and especially through Kailua, because this is the district he reps. So it's getting better and better, but we're still, you can't go jump on a bike lane in Kailua and not have to go in the road in certain parts.
Okay. I didn't know that. And that's good to know. So it surprises me, because I would have thought they would have been a pioneer in this, because they're all about horses and outdoor and beaches and, getting out of the city and go and seeing the spectacular scenery all around. But yes, I sort of think back, the roads were kind of, it almost seemed like they had potholes and stuff here. I don't know if that's because
they sure do
shift and stuff here. And everything seemed to be not what I was expecting as we were wheeling around, trying to see some of this stuff here. And I thought, well, this isn't I grew up in the Midwest. It's snow. There's potholes everywhere. The ice and the salt they put on the roads just breaks the asphalt down. And so there's always potholes in the summer. I don't know what causes the potholes, if it's just
Here it's the massive amounts of rain, right? And you get a little crack in the asphalt, and then the water seeps in, it delaminates it from the bed.
Right.
And then you get a giant pothole, and they don't fix them very often. And I've been to Costa Rica, where I heard the potholes are the worst place in the planet. And I'm like, oh, it's just like home.
I've seen this before. Well, all right. So their e-bikes are advancing. They're making inroads into not just the tourism trade. Any other tourism groups? Maybe you just lucked out because the Japanese dropped their busloads in front of you here. But there are groups from Australia, there are groups from all over the world, assuming there are groups from China that come these days too, or were coming. Certainly tons of people from the United States. Any difference between different nationalities? Some people embrace this, some people are hesitant to try it. Any groups like that? Chandelle, you're seeing them in the front lines here. Some people walking and go, oh, they know what this is. They're ready to do it. Others walk in and go, I have no idea. I've never done this before.
Yeah, I think it's all kind of in line with people just knowing more about electric bikes now that we have a lot more people from the mainland or from Australia or from Europe that do come in and rent. Even if they have a car, they'll park the car in our parking lot and go out and rent or do a tour. The tours are a lot more popular with the non-Asian tourists. So we are starting to see more than, say, in the very beginning. And I think that's just all due to people being more knowledgeable of what e-bikes are and not being afraid of them.
Right. And interesting because, for example, we've had a number of dealers on from different parts of the country. And oddly enough, many of them cite the dealer or the dealers in San Diego because there are cruise lines. So you get off the cruise line in San Diego here. And what are we going to do? We want to go see downtown. I can take an Uber. I can't really walk. And so they're getting on e-bikes, and then they're going back to Kansas and Colorado and other places. The woman in Colorado said, oh, my goodness, a customer just came in and said, I rode an e-bike in San Diego after I got off a cruise ship, and I live in Colorado. Some of this is generating interest back home. They try it on a tour, on a whim, and on a vacation, and then they come home, and I got to have one of these things. And that's what has motivated some of these people to be dealers because they went back to pick a state in the middle of the country. There is no e-bike store there for anybody, and that's what's leading them to see opportunities there. Ever any thoughts of expanding into other places, Mark? You've got lots of islands there. I don't know Where else?
Yeah,
to go?
we're kind of Kailua addicts here. And
my impression of all you guys in the beach areas, mañana, tomorrow, the store's open when I'm not surfing.
I have a really good story, a family story of how Chandelle became my daughter.
I know there's a wedding that was recently held, and you ended up like giving away the bride. Maybe I'm giving away the story here, but
so her father passed away when she was younger, and so she came here. Her mom moved here, and her grandma. And she was working for us, and she is I cannot praise her enough. She is unbelievable. And we were having
she's smiling and blowing kisses back at you. See that?
We were about to have a Chamber of Commerce party at our store. Mm-hmm. And my wife is she's now retired, but she's a United flight attendant. So she would go to Shanghai and bring back little things. And she brought back what kind of purses?
Louis Vuitton.
Yeah, those Louis Vuitton things.
Come on, you don't know Louis Vuitton? Even I know Louis Vuitton here, yeah.
Well, my wife, believe me, I went and bought my wife a real one, but she would go to Shanghai and buy daughters, friends, purses. So we got to the store that day about 20 minutes before the party was supposed to start. And Chandelle said, "Oh, I've got a special place for your purse." And she opened the closet. Her back was to us, and her arms went up in the air, and she crumpled to the ground, and she took 2 deep breaths, and she stopped breathing. What? And I went, "Oh my God, she stopped breathing."
Yeah.
I put my head to her chest, and I went, "She's got no heartbeat."
Oh my God.
And I sat up, and I put my hands on her chest, and my wife said, "I just got back from training. Let me do it. I just learned the new way to do CPR."
Right.
She started working. EMTs got there in about 4 minutes, and took them about an hour to get her revived back to life. And then Chandelle went off to the hospital for a month.
Yep.
Weeks.
Yikes.
Well, and so at that point,
there was a bond. There was a bond. You brought her back to life. Well,
she became, we figured we gave her life. So she became our daughter. My real daughter refers to her as, "Oh, you mean the daughter you really love?" Not even kidding. So
there's one you have to love because she's our daughter. And then there's one we choose to love.
Yeah. So when her fiance was going to propose, I was on a surf trip in Mexico, and all of a sudden my phone rang. I'm like, "What does Gavin want?" I answer, and he told me what his plan was.
Yeah, he's got to ask you. Her dad's looking down from heaven somewhere. You're the one on the scene here, making those calls on the field here.
What he asked was, he said, "Hey, I want to ask Chandelle to marry me, and I want to do it on the boat when you get home." Because Chandelle and I spend a lot of time together on our boat. Mm-hmm. So, I got home, and he got on one knee, and it was beautiful. And then they got married in July. And he's a super, super nice guy. And they gave me a new 9-year-old granddaughter.
There you go. Wow. You get a whole package with this deal here.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, Pedego brought us together into one big family.
Well, that's what I hear over and over again. We'll go out on that point here. Pedego seems to act like a family to their dealers. They act like a family to their customers. These aren't just people we sold something to. Your story, hey, you need help? Great. Like you would a friend, like you would a family member here. And it seems like you guys within the community all kind of have bonded together. And maybe it's because you're all pioneering something new together here. I don't know. Or maybe there's something, just that smile that everybody talks about on their face, that from selling Pedegos and putting people on bikes. I don't know what it is. I'm still trying to figure it out. But you guys seem to be like a family as a group. Am I overstating this, Chandelle?
No, not at all.
Our favorite thing when you talk about that is we call it the Pedigo Giggle. And when a woman gets on the bike for the first time and does the first lap in our parking lot, they always have the Pedego Giggle. We had the great William Shatner on the show, who bought one and has become passionate about it. He's even become like a spokesman sometimes for the company and everything. And the guy's 90. And he said, I said,
Bill, if I can call you Bill, why are you riding a bike at 90? He said, because it makes me feel like a kid again. And I said, really? He said, I get on the bike and the first thing I say is, this is his word, wee. And I thought, when's the last time I said wee? I'm not 90, but I'm getting up there. And I don't think I said wee in a long time here. And that really seems to be what you all experience, this wee sensation here.
We had a client who bought a bike from us. Her name was Yosinia. And she rode the bike the first time and she got off and she said, oh my God, it's like riding a magic carpet.
Oh, there's one we'll have to use.
Yeah,
magic
we like
carpet.
that one.
Like
We use it all the time.
The magic carpet ride. All right. Well, thanks for taking us on your ride here today. I didn't know we were going to take a turn into Chandelle losing her heartbeat. I'm trying to say it some clever way or funny way, but it doesn't look like there's any funny way to say it. One more reason I'm never going to give my wife a Louis Vuitton bag, because I don't want to have that kind of reaction here. What a story. And it sounds like it's only part of it's getting back on track as Hawaii gets back on track. And it seems like it's going in new directions. You're not just renting the bikes to tourists, you're selling them as well here.
It's awesome.
It's awesome. All right. Chandelle, you get the last word here. We've been talking about your story. Anything you want to add to the story?
No, I think we covered it all.
What's your husband think of this? Does he like, all right, get out of this now, honey. We're not going to sell e-bikes anymore. Or is he like, hey, this is kind of cool. Maybe I could.
Me on the weekly when he can get a bike.
See?
Yeah.
All right. We'll talk to Dad or whatever we call him here. Yeah. I think we know the guy who can make that deal happen here.
Runs the store. I make no decisions.
yeah.
That's all up to her.
I see.
Do I have to give my husband a discount? No.
Well, that's a tough store manager. Boy, I wish I had her working for me here. I didn't want to even give her husband a discount here. Usually they want to give everybody a discount. All right. Well, thanks so much for giving us an inside look at what I would think would be e-bike heaven, but it's had some obstacles along the way, some pitfalls, some roadblocks, some potholes, along the way here. But it sounds like you're still pedaling along, and you've been there for quite a while, and it sounds like you got a big future ahead of you here as the laws change and the roads open up and the tourists return. I see only good things, smooth sailing ahead for Pedego Kailua. Did I say that right? Pedego Kailua. Tell us where the store is at if they want to go find you. You're on the north. Is that the north side of the island? Whatever. It's on the other side of the island. I don't know if it's north, south, or east or west.
We're in Kailua side. We're right in the middle of Kailua town. Over the most beautiful scenic roads. There's 3 of them that come here, and all of them are so scenic, it's unbelievable.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to have to see one if I ever come there again on a Pedego electric bike. That's the way.
Come see us, Paul.
All right. Thanks for sharing this. All right.
And as the last word, we'll both say aloha.
Aloha. Yes, exactly. All right. Thanks so much. Aloha to Mark and Chandelle from Pedego Kailua. Well, there you have it. That's this week's tale from the frontiers of the e-bike revolution. Some people that got there early and are still riding along way over in the beautiful island of Hawaii, or the islands of Hawaii, right here in the Pedego Podcast. For more, go find us at pedego.com.